As the most experienced fighter around, I'll be waiting there for all of you. Waiting to crush you. I will finally be the ultimate champion. The undefeated of the East, West, South, North, and Center. I will become Super Asia and be champion of all.
Geek out! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
This week, we've got Grace Ellis coming back on the show. She's here to talk about, her book Moonstruck with Shae Beagle, who also comes on the show, and their book is out on Wednesday, March 21st. But let's let them talk about it. And coming back on the show, we have Grace Ellis. Her book, Moonstruck with Shae Beagle, is out in comic book stores everywhere and on Comixology on Wednesday, March 21st. Grace, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be back.
So, something I have to ask, and this has been like on my mind since when it first came out in single issue.
Oh no!
Who put?
Only be bad.
No. Whose idea was it to put the Babadook in Moonstruck?
That was a triple idea. We all kind of came up with it at the same time because we were doing the parade, and we were like, "This would be really dumb. I don't know if we're like legally allowed to do this," and then we did it anyway. So the Babadook is in the LGBT club at the college, obviously. He's got a nice little feather boa, just being his little self.
Looks very happy. Everyone's having a good time in that sequence. Also, something that I've also wondered, the coffee shop is called Dog Number 2, but it's a cat.
Yeah. Well, it's Little Dog 2, because Little Dog 1 is across town. So this is the second coffee shop they've opened, so it's Little Dog 2. But they're all witches. So It's like, Little Dog, I'll get you and your little dog too. It's dumb, but I like it. You can tell it's a good joke because I had to verbally explain it. That's how you know it's good writing.
Jay Leno's been doing it for years.
Hey,
So, the story Moonstruck had been originally conceived as a short story. You guys had said as much the first time you were on. What interesting places, now here we are, the end of Arc 1. You've already got the beginning of Arc 2, the first two issues anyway, solicited. What interesting paths did it take as you both expanded this into a full ongoing series?
Well, we're really interested in doing a lot more world building. I think that the world of Moonstruck has so many possibilities. The second arc, we're kind of delving more into like the college aspect of the college town. The characters. Hold on. Oh God, I'm so sorry. My cat is in here and she's making so much noise.
It's fine. We all have felines. Jake, you've
She
got what,
just
two?
Two, yeah.
She just loves attention so much. It's very important. Okay, sorry. Okay, I'll try it again. In the second arc of Moonstruck, we're exploring the college aspect a little more. All of the characters are like at the end of college or just after college. So specifically, we're going to kind of get into like the Greek life part of the university, Blytheton State. It gets a little hairy. I'll tell you that.
Pun intended?
Perhaps.
It is that sort of book.
It is, yeah.
So was that kind of, you mentioned the world building, you're at prime time for the quarter life crisis, Shae being fresh out of college. Was that kind of what brought you guys to want to tell this fresh out of college kind of story as these, Julie and Selena and Chet are reaching their own kind of burgeoning adulthood? That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, that was real poetic.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think well I have like just exited this stage, this like fresh out of college stage, and Shae has just entered. So I think it's been really interesting to like talk about it because it's so transitional, and the world is changing so fast that like that state of being seems like it's changing. It's really interesting to like think about like where you are mentally right when you leave college and like how you become a full person in the full world, that wasn't the most eloquent thing I've ever said, but
Nonsense.
I think it's I think it's a strong arc, if I may say so.
It is, and I remember like there's kind of like this overarching theme of normalcy, or what it means to be normal, both on your own or in a relationship. More speaking to Julie and Selena's relationship, that really is the emotional crux of the first 5 issues. Is that something that we're going to see beyond Volume 1 as we go into Volume 2? And is that emotional crux? Because we see it. I mean, we make jokes there, and there's a lot of jokes in Moonstruck. I think it's some of the most jokes per capita. You know, there's sight gags, there's puns, there's the Babadook, and there are some genuinely, especially as the series progresses, just heartbreaking moments, particularly without giving the game away, near the end of this first arc. Is that something that elusive what it means to be normal, and that emotional relationship between Julie and Selena going to carry over into arc 2?
Oh, for sure. That's kind of like the crux of the whole series, I think, is going to be mostly that. The other piece of that we're kind of working more toward now that we're doing more arcs is Julie kind of has to learn how to like be the protagonist of her own life and see herself as like an active like figure in her own story, instead of just like a passive figure that just kind of like rides along and just like lets things happen to her. It's about like taking control and feeling like you can take control.
Which I suppose is really her journey across those first 5 issues, because again, I'm dancing in between.
No, it's so hard.
Yeah. There's an outburst where, in contrast to issue 1, where, and I think I mentioned this like in the first time you both were on, in her werewolf form, she's what historically we see as her most, werewolves or whatever lycanthrope, they're always at their most formidable when they become lichens. In this, she's at her most vulnerable, and she kind of, again, dancing in between.
You're doing a great job.
Thanks. There's an inversion on that inversion over the course of those 5. So it's going to kind of pick up the character threads and the relationship dynamic from there.
Yeah.
Right on. Cool. Are we going to also with moving into the fraternity, the frat life, and the kind of boisterous, like everybody wants some kind of narrative in issue 6 and everything, are we going to see a change in antagonist? Is it no longer Dorian, the super slender fox?
Well, Dorian's going to move into the background. He's not really in the second arc as much. He's going to pop up a little bit, but it's definitely, the antagonist is definitely different, in like a literal sense. I think that like thematically is pretty similar though. It's not hitting the same notes. I've been like very clear that it's definitely not the same as the first arc, but I think it's a logical next step in like, especially in with regard to like the world building and how magic functions in this world. I think it'll be interesting.
Well, in a lot of ways, I feel like Dorian is this kind of like personified monkey's paw, because something we see from Chet from issue 1 and him crushing on the crushing that the Minotaur, it's a Minotaur, on Manuel, and of course with Julie's quest for normalcy, there is almost like the idea that Dorian will grant those wishes, but in a way that those characters never ever wanted. Like the price would be too high.
Right.
So
exactly. What
does the antagonist kind of pose? What inner conflict does the antagonist symbolize and pose to the characters moving forward in issue 6 and 7?
It's more about offering like an idealized life for each of them, but at a very direct cost for the others, instead of before where it was like there is a cost but you can potentially come out on top. It's like you can just have this, and then maybe something horrible will happen to the people that you care about. Now I'm doing the dancing.
Dancing in the Dark. It's my favorite Springsteen song.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead on the record and say
Okay.
that's the one. It's
Wow.
All right.
not Born in the USA.
Not you.
Yeah.
Taking a bold stance there.
Yeah, it is.
I see the judgy eyes, guys.
I'm trying my best not to. I love that song. I'm just saying.
It's got Courtney Cox in the music video.
Is it all timer? I don't know.
Something interesting about Dorian, and
I thought you were going to say something interesting about Dancing in the Dark, and then we just talk about that for like an hour.
yeah, this is the push-ups and Bruce Springsteen, more specifically Dancing in the Dark.
Oh,
Springsteen.
I've seen him play it as a folk song. Have you heard that? That shit'll fucking wreck you. It's not like because of the synth.
In a good way, or
no, in like the way it's supposed to. Because like, sorry, just real quick. Like the thing about like that is a genius, and also it's a catch-22 with the Born in the USA album is all the synth.
That's my favorite. See, that's my favorite Springsteen album.
Fair, and like all like and it's a great album. Like all the synth and the drums and the big drums. Like I said, it's a genius, but catch-22 with Springsteen because like you hear a song like Born in the USA and you're like, oh yeah, it's all about patriotism, and it's not. And like that's the synth and everything. You hear Dancing in the Dark and it's like like all the synth and stuff, and you're like, oh cool, like it's like a happy song. And it's not necessarily a happy, you know what I mean? When you strip all like the synth and the big drums away, you're
That's
like,
music
oh,
in the 80s, though.
Shit.
Like, you listen to Cure songs, and you're like, oh, this isn't, like, why is this happy? Why are there synths?
Yeah.
Like, when
But,
you
like,
actually look at the lyrics.
To hear it as like a folk song, it's like it totally changes the game. I think you'd really dig it.
Okay.
If you haven't heard it like that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's our
And
recommendation.
everybody else listening, check out Springsteen.
That's what you're geeking out
Springsteen's folk rendition, folky rendition
That's
of
the
Dancing in
listeners at home homework for
Yeah.
this week.
There is something intriguing about Dorian, though, both in how Shae renders him as this kind of, I mean, to speak to both, you know, there's a lot of questions of identity that drive Moonstruck and really most fiction in general. But I mean, that's certainly I think the crux, especially given the age of the characters. But I think I mentioned this last time too. So I'm Korean Irish. When in Anglo-Irish culture, a fox is cunning, it's sly, very much like Dorian in this opening arc. In Korean culture, a fox symbolizes death. So there's kind of like the fact that he's palling around with a ghost in those first 5 issues. There was something there where I was like, holy shit. Like, I was like watching this like character that is somehow even more sinister than I think you guys had originally intended.
For sure, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I will take credit for it, but I did not know.
What made the ghost the right companion for Dorian?
Well, I'm trying to think about how we came upon that. Here's how it like ultimately went down, which was that the whole like concept of like a free magic show you could go to every week is like real in this town. There is a real place that you can go to and see a free magic show every week. And we used to go all the time because it's really just like so strange. It's just like the weirdest shit that you have ever seen in your life because they try to do a different show every week and they bring in people every week. So when I was thinking about these characters, they're just literally based on these two guys, like the guy that runs the show, like the magician, and then the like host guy. And he just he seems like a ghost mostly because he's so like charming, and then he just immediately disappears and you don't see him for the rest of the show. Where did he go? I have no idea. But also like on a more practical level, a ghost is something that's like you can see it in the comic, but there is like this suspension of disbelief when you're like looking at it, where he can like be doing things and you understand that like the character can't really see him. So like when he's in the first issue where Dorian and Anderson appear, he can like help with the magic tricks and you can't see him. And I think that brings an interesting element into it where he could be around and you might not know.
Well, also from a practical standpoint, you guys really do milk a lot of slapstick humor out of Anderson, because being presumably dead, you guys kind of put him through a lot of like on the receiving end of a lot of like kind of physical like slapsticky pain. There's a moment where I feel like it's in a parade or a motorcade, and he straight up takes like
takes like a bullet.
He takes like the magic bullet. He takes up like the JFK magic bullet, and I was just like, oh, that character's dead. Like we're forgetting that that character's already dead.
Yeah, he just dies over and over again. I mean, that's like the whole trick with writing like YA books, though, is how far can you take the violence before it becomes like bloody violence, you know? Mm-hmm. So you got to get creative. He got assassinated, but it was fine. We got away with it.
And it's still an all-age friendly book.
Exactly. Give it to your kids.
Yeah. Ghosts get like deep sixed in the back of the head.
Null, you know?
When it came to making this all age friendly, you know, you both had done the American Library Association show in was it Colorado earlier this month?
Yeah. We just got back from Denver.
I was wondering how the response has been. The Moonstruck's been on a lot of top 10 or best of lists at the end of 2017, and what rightfully so, at the risk of getting my nose brown. But I was wondering how the reaction to the younger crowds and the crowds that would be reading the Pleasant Mountain books out of like book fairs and that sort of thing, how that response has been.
You know, I've been surprised. It's been really good. As I was writing, I was like, "There's no way this book is just like not going to find any particular audience." But it seems like kids really like it. I think that maybe it's just like the way that the art is and the colors. It's just very warm and inviting, and I think the story like works on multiple levels. But we had a bunch of kids in Denver who seemed like very excited about it. We did a panel. It was an all ages panel presented by Image, which was fascinating but like very enlightening. And there were a bunch of kids at it, even though it was first thing in the morning. It was great.
I think we've had. Certainly you and Shae, but if I remember correctly, Seb Gerner and Rich Tommaso were also on that panel, and that's really like the entire gamut of all age comics, because that's something that, you know, when Jake and I are working a comic book show, more often than not, we'll get a parent that comes up and asks what book is good for my kids, and we can't necessarily hand them Sex Criminals, or I mean, we can try.
Not necessarily.
But or Kill or Be Killed or any of that stuff. But with something like Moonstruck, something like I invoked Seb and Rich, so Spy Seal or Scales and Scoundrels. Yeah. Was that something that was very you both were very conscious about when you were conceiving the series?
About making it all ages friendly?
Oh yeah.
It wasn't something I was thinking about. I think once we started like actually putting pen to paper, I was like, oh, I should like, this would just as easily be all ages if I didn't swear in it. So I like had to do another pass and get rid of all the swearing because I'm very prone to it. It's a real crutch. But I think we found some fun ways around it. I mean, it was really easy in Lumberjanes because then you just like make up words and now it's a dialect. But like in this, it felt like we couldn't do that. They say frig a lot.
Yeah. You could bring back the old comic style where it's just random like symbols and characters.
Right, exactly. I'm like half a step away from it. In one of the issues in the next arc, I have a character saying Holy Momus, who is like a Greek god, and I was like, nice, nailed it. So that's where the bar is.
Nice. That's an educated bar, though.
I hope so. I spend a lot of time on Wikipedia, so it's fake education, but that's fine. I think. I think I'm getting away with it.
I mean, if that's fake education, I need to hand back my grad degree immediately. These are all valid sources. Not that you. Here's the thing. I remember people would actually cite Wikipedia on their bibliography, and it's like, bro. Oh. Use the citations on the Wikipedia.
Have some self-respect. Yeah. Jesus.
Maintain the illusion just a little. So, you had mentioned, so how do you carry that all-age friendly sense into not just a college town, but a frat house?
Well, I think it's tough. I don't envy Shae very much in this, because I think a lot of it's going to ride on Shae. Shae, who went to an art school that didn't have Greek life. I went to Ohio State, which is just like Greek central. So I think here's kind of the plan, which is like I'm just going to kind of write what I know, like a much more toned down version, obviously, but like just kind of generally hitting the Greek life notes in like a silly way, and then Shae's going to come in and make it even sillier. And then it's going to be appropriate for children. That's the hope.
What's the balance like in terms of, because again, there's a lot of sight gags in every single issue, almost every single, to the point where it's in every single panel. Certainly during like the crowd scenes and the outdoor sequences. What's the kind of collaborative divide there between you, Shae, and Lauren?
That's tough. In the final product, I would say it's probably that's tough. I think that I'm probably responsible for like a third of the visual gags. Most of it is Shae. Lauren also has a big hand in it, though. But I have to give credit to Shae on that, because if I write a panel and it doesn't have a sight gag in it, Shae will add one for sure. Like almost every single time. It's great though. I love it. They're very they're a completionist when it comes to packing it in.
Right. With the are we going to see more Pleasant Mountain moving forward, or is that really kind of the parallel thread just in the first arc?
Oh no, we have a new artist coming in for Pleasant Mountain this time. I've just forgotten how to say her name. Sorry, because I've never had to say it out loud. It's Kate Ferrado.
Oh, so
Kat Ferrado. Sorry, yeah, she's great. I really love her, and I really dig her work on this. This next arc for Pleasant Mountain, it's a little different, because Julie wants to eventually be a writer on Pleasant Mountain. So in this arc, the Pleasant Mountain we see is it's her script, and the art is like her imagining what this will look like when it's drawn out. But she's like passing the script around to her friends.
So it's even more an exaggeration of the events that the characters are currently going through, since it's directly from Julie?
It's not as directly related to what they're doing. It is directly related to her subconscious, though.
I do like that you guys managed to slip in an Old Man Jenkins reference for all the Scooby Doo fans in there.
Oh, God, I love Scooby Doo so much. I'm so glad you started talking about Scooby Doo. I could dancing in the dark about Scooby Doo for like hours.
Okay, since we've opened,
Good throwback.
yeah. I might be opening a can of Hanna-Barbera themed worms here, but who in the Scooby gang is your favorite, Grace?
Velma. It's got to be Velma. Velma is the only competent one. She's solving the whole mystery, and everyone else is just swirling around her.
It's a good answer.
And I really respect that.
The fact that she's played by Linda Cardinelli in the movies.
Oh my God, the movies, I love those so much. People hate them. I was literally just talking to someone about these movies.
They're so good. I have a friend.
They're so good.
I have a friend who went to a Star Wars convention where Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze Jr. were going to be, because they're in their voices in Rebels and she was the only person there who was there to see them because of the Scooby Doo live action movies. she was like, I like Star Wars, but not enough to go to a convention. But Scooby Doo,
they're so good. They're just so like self-aware, but not in like a Gremlins 2 kind of way. I can't get over it. Sorry, I know that I'm not even really saying anything. I just like am so excited at the prospect of talking about Scooby-Doo that I am just verklempt,
I mean, we always get lost in the weeds.
Oh yeah.
We just had Steve Orlando on, and we went on a
Clint Eastwood
10-minute diatribe on really just Dirty Harry with Steve. Yeah. It's like we could talk about Midnighter, but let's talk about Magnum Force.
Yeah. That was mostly my fault. Yeah, they're mostly my fault now that I come to think of it.
To be fair,
Yeah.
Bruce Springsteen, that's on me.
That Springsteen was on you. I'm usually the one who invokes He-Man
True. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
and RoboCop.
And RoboCop. Here's an unpopular opinion. Second Scooby Doo movie. Favorite Scooby Doo movie.
Okay.
It's a little.
I can accept this opinion.
It's a little more bombastic.
Yeah.
It kind of embraces the more fun. It's a little less self-referential, but a little more kind of like closer to classic Scooby Doo.
Yes. Definitely something to enjoy in both of them.
Better than the times they ran around with Vincent Price.
Oh my God.
I was always bummed.
Mistakes were made.
Yeah, I was always bummed out because that was called the 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo. There isn't 13 episodes. They don't get all 13 ghosts.
Ooh, bummer.
They left it open-ended for you.
That's brutal. It's ongoing. Someone else is going to pick it up.
Someone probably will. Netflix.
Netflix, right, exactly.
They just haven't found the last couple because now, since there's so few, they're harder to track down.
Vincent Price is the 13th ghost.
Oh my God.
Vincent Price's head in a fishbowl is the 13th ghost.
Madame Leota style. So, are we going to start to see more? I mean, we've got Julie, we've got Selena, we've got Chet, we've got Cassandra. Are we going to see more additions to the supporting cast as we move forward into and it becomes more weirder, complicated, and bigger at the same time?
Yes, definitely. The supporting cast is less friendly in the second arc, but I think in a pretty fun way.
It's frat boys. That's usually
right.
not.
They're just like mean Greeks mostly.
Yeah.
But I think it's. Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like they're just like flat characters. They're definitely dynamic and full human beings.
Well, with again dancing in the dark once again. That's what we're going to title this episode. I think we just have to title it "Grace Ellis Dances in the Dark with Moonstruck."
Ooh,
came up with the title on the spot.
That's beautiful.
I try.
I didn't know that Brian De Palma directed the video.
Oh, for Dancing in the Dark?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was like, Moonstruck.
You guys keep up. It's been 3 years, man.
I was thinking the Cher film. You weren't on last time, Jake, when we talked about Cher.
No, I was not on.
And how we talked about how Believe is one of the greatest pop songs of the 21st century.
Controversial.
I guess, yeah.
Are you a turn back time kind of guy? That's one of the sailors.
I know. What is my favorite Cher song? I don't know.
Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves. That's the greatest Cher song.
Exactly.
She's in the new Mamma Mia movie. I know that. I saw the trailer. I saw the trailer yesterday.
That'll be fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Is Pierce back?
Oh, yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Does he sing just as bad?
I hope so.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, probably.
Cool. Right on. So one of the things to, again, Dancing in the Dark, apparently directed by Brian De Palma. I was surprised because at first blush, Dorian is just mustache twirling, or in this case, whisker twirling, sneering villain. But when we cut to the core's humanity, there we start to see the motivations, and something we notice, and it wasn't apparent from the first issue. There are humans that live in this town that don't have the magical transformative abilities, and there's almost a sense of like these two, I don't want to call them species, but these two different, the magical and the non-magical can coexist and coexist peacefully, but I feel like there's a tension there.
There is, yeah. It's really funny that we're having this conversation now, because when I started writing Moonstruck, I had just finished a rewatch of Legend of Korra, and I am now in another rewatch of Legend of Korra, and I would be lying if I said that did not influence the way that this story kind of came about, especially the first season of Legend of Korra, which is all about like the tension between the benders and the non-benders. Hopefully we're going about it in a pretty different way, and I think that we are. But I thought that was an interesting way to look at this. My thought process for it going forward is that it's kind of bubbling in the background, and it's not going to take center stage for a while. But it's definitely there. It's mostly peaceful, though. But it's more about like the identity politics of the whole thing than like a mustache twirling villain ultimately, if that makes sense.
Almost I don't necessarily want to get too political, but there's almost like that's the aspect of social commentary. It doesn't take center stage, but it does inform the characters and the story at large.
Right, exactly.
Whereas I'm trying to, within the magical community, it's both there's a celebration, but there's also, because we see that a lot. We see Chet, the resentment with the scimitar legs. We see Julie with freaking out over whenever she loses control and wolfs out. Whereas Selena's a lot more confident in that ability, or at least a lot more comfortable in that form. We see it with the literal Batman.
Right.
There's always that kind of there's tension. There's always tension between the magical and the non-magical, but there's even within the magical, there's that. I don't want to. Again, self-loathing seems a little too harsh.
Well, I mean, I think everybody has a different relationship with it. It depends on what kind of magical ability it is, like what the character's background is with it. It's kind of, I've been thinking about it in the same way that you would think about like race or gender or sexuality, et cetera, et cetera. It varies from person to person based on like how the world perceives them.
Right. Yeah. Which at the end of this arc, I'm dancing. The there is a clear acceptance makes it seem like it's over and done with and put to bed, but they're at a different level, like any identity struggle, where they're more comfortable, but they're still progressing towards something that nobody ever completely gets to, but they've reached a level of understanding with themselves, or they're continuing to grow into themselves.
Right, exactly. She has to make a choice to like I walked right into it. The character has to make a choice to take a stand one way or the other.
Right.
And she makes a choice. Ta-da. We did it.
Okay, avoiding spoilers and themes. Another thing I have to ask. Is that a Tommy Wiseau reference in issue 4?
Yes! Yes!
Woo!
I couldn't help but read it in that, like it was.
In that voice?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally.
Yeah. I mean, it was one right after the other.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. When I described the character in the script, I said he had long, wavy black hair, and I'm really glad that Shae drew him the way that they did, with like a side shaved, because otherwise it just would have been Tommy Wiseau.
That dude can get litigious, so yeah, watch out.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you can't help, but that dude always looks wet, but never looks clean.
I love him so much. I mean, he's like very loathsome in many ways, but like, wow, what a guy. You have to admire him.
I think it's because he's like almost like he is a living parody of that archetype.
Yes.
And it's just
he's just so much that. So much that.
Yeah. Did you end up seeing The Disaster Artist?
Yes, I loved it. I thought it was great.
There are moments in that where I was wondering, I was like, because they had to, Franco had to clear it with Rousseau. I was like, if they hadn't, could they have maybe? There was moments where it was like a little too like self-massaging,
Yes. But I was really impressed overall. I was impressed with how many anecdotes they managed to shoehorn in there.
Yeah.
That I was like, oh, that was in the book. Just the whole time. I think that everyone was really annoyed with me because the whole time I was like, that was in the book.
I was doing the same thing when I was watching it because I had also read the book.
The book is so good.
It really is. And I'm not that great of a book reader, so I also got the book on tape. Like I was gifted the physical book, and I got maybe a third of the way through it before I was like, I can't do this, so I got the audiobook, and Greg Sestero narrates the audiobook, so I was like, yes.
Yeah, I also I shouldn't say that I read it. It was on the audiobook.
To be fair,
you just got to hear him do the Tommy voice.
Oh, his Tommy is so good.
Yeah, at first I was like, this is really bad, but by the end I was like, no, actually, I think that maybe you're spot on, and you're just like, you hear him at a different level, and now I'm also hearing it with you. It's great.
So as we kind of wrap issue or arc 1 and prepare for arc 2, what kind of looking back, how is this your? Well, I guess you had co-created Lumberjanes, but again, this born from a short story and first time working with Shae and everything. First time working with Lauren, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
How's it kind of been, and what kind of interesting avenues has it kind of taken you as you look back and then look forward?
This feels like the kind of question you ask, and then I spend like a 90-minute movie telling the audience
we got time.
It's been really good. I feel like I've learned a lot because the image structure is so different from Boom's structure. It's so much more relaxed. But I think it's forced me to learn a lot about how I work and working much more closely with an artist, because Boom kind of keeps their artists and writers a little more separate. But it's been really good. It's taught me a lot about the value of collaboration more than anything else. The book wouldn't be what it is. Genuinely, it would not be what it is if we weren't all contributing in a major way. So it's been really positive overall, I would say.
Oh, I remember you guys would, similar to the characters, you would hang out in coffee shops and kind of take inspiration as you people watched. That dude's totally like a mythical beast,
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, Shae has since moved away, ruined my entire life. I tell them constantly that they just
so rude.
I know. I've taken it as a personal offense. They live in Kentucky now, and it's why would you do that to yourself? No offense to Kentucky, but
their fried chicken's awesome.
But all offense to Kentucky.
Right. Ultimately, yes.
Trying to think what they got other than the fried chicken. Jake, you were born in Kentucky.
I was born in Kentucky.
Don't they have horse racing?
They do, and bourbon.
Yeah. They got some good things. I don't know how.
Baseball bats, Louisville Sluggers. Yeah.
Fort Knox,
where you were born.
Yeah.
Right there in the fort.
Right there in the middle of Fort.
right after Goldfinger tried to steal everything.
My first thought.
He tries to irradiate it.
Yeah. That's a whole other podcast.
That's the twist.
Actually, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, spoilers for a 50-year-old movie?
54.
Yeah.
So, Grace, as you may recall, something we ask everybody that comes on our fine program, what are you currently geeking out over, other than Legend of Korra and Scooby Doo? Or, I mean, it could be both those things as well, but then you're going to have to, continue to expound why both those things are awesome.
Okay. I will geek out. Okay, so I finished another audiobook today. I'm too lazy to read. I'm always walking around, and I would rather listen to a book. So I finished the audiobook for Patricia Highsmith's The Blunderer today. Mm-hmm. Fascinating read. Listen. it's really good. It was her third book. It was after Strangers on a Train and The Price of Salt. Hold on, the cat is doing a thing again.
That darn cat.
Starring Frank Gorshin.
Yeah.
Oh, she's so sweet, but she's so needy.
Those are the best kinds, in my opinion.
She like cuddles in bed. She's so cute. Anyway, okay, so The Blunderer. So you know Strangers on a Train, right?
Yeah.
It's like the Hitchcock movie, these two guys and they switch murders. So The Blunderer is kind of thematically similar. There's this guy, he commits a murder right at the beginning of the book. And then there's another guy who also hates his wife, and he reads about the murder in the paper, and he's like, oh, what if I also killed my wife in this exact same way? Except he's very dumb the whole book. And he just like blows every opportunity he has and just makes his life impossibly hard. It's so great. It's like, it's just so tense and so like taut the entire time. Even when you like know where it's going, you don't really know where it's going.
Because the character is so incompetent that you're like, oh, he's totally going to escape this way, and then he like screws that up.
Yeah. Yes. Every opportunity. You just, oh my God, why are you still lying so much? Stop lying, you know? Mm-hmm. Like you can make your life so much easier if you just like told the cops the truth. But it's so great. Something that Patricia Highsmith is really good at is making you like really identify with any character. And her books have such like a twisted sense of morality, like in The Talented Mr. Ripley, you know, how you like really want Ripley to get away with the whole thing, even though he's definitely the bad guy in the story, you know? So in this one, it's like, do I want him to get away with it, or is he so stupid he deserves to like die, you know? Plus the cop is a total lunatic. It's great. It really makes you feel a lot of different things for a lot of different characters that you would not necessarily expect to be feeling. It's great. I recommend it.
Well, that's kind of like the thing that I think a lot of prestige TV kind of take those cues, because at any given moment on, say, Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, which I'm aware are like basically the same show, or like Game of Thrones, any of those characters, or Mad Men, you could be rooting for them one episode, and then the following week they could be like, that I don't really like that character. Like there's something to be said about that kind of like almost like whiplash in terms of how you view the main characters, the protagonists.
Right, exactly.
Because no one's ever always the good guy, not in real life. No one's there's, I mean, this is a 2018 world. There are characters that are like always the bad guy, but in the real world, but in everything there is a level of nuance, and there's a moment in Dancing Again, in Between the Raindrops. There's a moment that Chet has in this first arc. We feel for the guy. He arguably goes through the worst or the most harrowing stuff in the opening arc. But there are moments where you're like, that's kind of a dick move, dude. Like there's both sides of the coin. I mean, it's Chet, so we end up loving whatever the character does at the end of the day. But there's something in, again, Dancing, that involves Manuel and a not Manuel character in the Little Dog 2 that, again, there's a complication of those characters. You can see Selena's side on certain things, and you can see Julie's side on certain things. But at the end of the day, those characters, like, they love each other, and so they're on the same side. They just sometimes view certain issues, more specifically their lycanthropy, in different ways.
Well, that's the goal, right? You want to make empathetic characters, and the best way to do that is to have them be totally three-dimensional, you know? Because nobody's all good or all bad. You got to really, like, look at all aspects of them and set them up so that they can show you all aspects of themselves.
Like you were mentioning with the frat boys moving into Arc 2.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Because it wouldn't be interesting if it was just like Animal House, because we've seen Animal House. We don't need another version of that with werewolves. Well, that would be pretty.
Now you're kind of selling me on that.
That's not what we're doing, but maybe in the future. That's a free pitch from me to you.
Oh man, that's amazing.
We were, as you may recall, we always do the book review like right before the interview comes out, and Jake and I were doing the book review for the trade paperback volume, and I asked Jake, as I want to do, Jake, what do you think of the book? And he was just like, dude, werewolves. And I was like, that's all it takes, isn't it, man? He's like, yeah. I mean, we say other positive things.
We do. But I do love werewolves.
How could you not? They're so great.
They really are. They're the best.
There's that far-off look.
I'm still thinking about Animal House, like all the classic scenes, but with a werewolf instead.
Mm-hmm. Everything is the same. But...
Everything's the same except John Belushi's a werewolf.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
bar.
So you get it.
Yeah. I just want to see like a werewolf in the college shirt.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what
I mean,
wanted
that's
to
how is
do.
that? I'm gonna Google that.
You
Someone
almost
had to do that.
You almost have it in Michael Jackson's Thriller, where he's wearing a Letterman's jacket.
It's true.
That's true. That's true.
Vincent Price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God, Vincent Price.
Yeah.
Sorry. I just had that realization. It's like, he's there, too.
Yeah, he's everywhere.
Oh, God. But he isn't the 13th ghost. He's just the final ghost.
That's right.
He's the narrator.
And in the end, it was Vincent Price. The real Vincent Price was the friends we made along the way. Well, my own bullshit. Honest to God. The Grace, while we have you on, is there anything you'd like to else you'd like to plug before we return you to the wilds of Ohio?
I think I'm good. I have a bunch of other projects I'm working on, but I can't talk about them, which is just like the worst. It just makes you sound so like self-indulgent, but I can't talk about them. But I'm excited. And you should be too, theoretically.
Looks right at the camera, breaks the fourth wall.
I mean, I guess at the risk of sounding self-indulgent ourselves, we get that a lot. Comic creators can't talk about their stuff when they're on interview with us.
Yeah, we're fresh off Expo. We've had a lot of. Now we can kind of talk, and of course, are you doing Emerald City again this year?
No, we're barely doing any conventions this year, unfortunately. Yeah.
Well,
we're just hanging out in the old Midwest.
There's a chance, and well, I'll mention this after. I'm probably because I'm going to jinx myself if I mention it on the air. And it's like, oh, but he wasn't actually there. You guys have no idea what I'm talking about. Maybe I was there the whole time.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, give me a sec. But yeah, so again, Volume 1 of Moonstruck out in comic book stores everywhere on Wednesday, March 21st. Grace, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I had a blast.
And coming back on the show, Shae Beagle, the co-creator and artist of Moonstruck. Shae, thanks again for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So this is your first major comic work. You fresh out of college. This had originally been a anthology piece that you had done with Grace and Lauren. Now that you're one trade deep, you've already solicited the beginning of the second story arc with the frat bros and that sort of thing. But
yeah.
How does it feel, and kind of what have you taken away as now that you've got one story under your belt and you're already moving forward?
It has been amazing. So I actually just got my copies of the trade in the mail just the other day, which was like an amazing feeling to hold a book in your hand and be like, look at this thing I made. This is like a year of my life right here in my hands. And like just the journey from like starting it while I was in college and now we have a actual trade that's going to be coming out soon is just like mind-boggling to me. I'm not even sure how I got here. I feel like I slept through it all. It's some kind of weird fever dream, but it's amazing. It feels so great.
It's tangible.
Yeah. I could show something to my parents and be like, look, I do work. I actually do work.
This is art.
This is art.
You and Grace had done a lot of the con scene, Emerald City last year. I think you did the American Library Association. Was it last month or 2 months ago?
I think it might have been February last month.
How has the response been, and just kind of working the con scene in general?
the response has been amazing. Like we've had people seek us out who like knew that we were going to be there, which is something I am totally not used to. And especially at ALA, the librarian convention, this was our first library con that we had been to, and we didn't quite know what to expect, but everyone was so welcoming and excited for this story, and all the librarians wanted to grab a copy, and everyone wanted to this and that and this and that, and it was amazing, but at the same time so chill. Like 100% not what comic conventions are. I felt like I could hear myself and actually have a conversation with somebody at a table. It was great. Would love to have more of that.
That's right. I remember the last time I saw you, you were hanging out with Grace, Kate Leth, and Lauren at the signing in San Diego, which is just just a circus. So
probably taking me about 15 minutes to get there just through the crowds.
Well, Jake and I are fresh off Emerald City this past weekend, so we're kind of we're.
That's a nice show to start the whole con stuff with, though.
That's true.
Like, it's not like
that was actually the convention that we announced our book at, which was really cool for me. It's a shame we couldn't go this year.
Any I know you're already busy with the second arc, but any plans to do, say, TCAF or C2E2 in the coming months?
We are coming up with a con schedule right now, and I don't think there's anything set in stone, but I know that we want to do more conventions, but at the same time we want to focus on the book, and we're not entirely sure the medium between that. But we'll keep you in touch with whatever conventions we're going to be going to.
Of course. Something I remember, I remember you mentioning last time around, you weren't necessarily... you do a fantastic job on Moonstruck. You know, it hit a lot of best of 2017 lists, and rightfully so. But you weren't really necessarily drawn into comics initially, or at least growing up. Has that changed at all, being as you've immersed yourself more professionally in this world? Has there been any comic titles that you've kind of been really drawn to?
Yeah, I've actually done a complete 180 on this. Like, I'm very much into stuff that's coming out now and keeping up with what the the friends I've made are making, and just being more in the comic scene rather than just making them and ignoring everything else. So, especially at ALA, I got a chance to pick up a whole bunch of titles that I've been meaning to pick up, because for some reason at library cons, everything's free, which again is something completely not comic convention. So I came home with this just stack of books, and I've been trying to read through them when I can. But I am so much just into reading more now and seeing all the different kinds of stories that people are making. And if somebody says a nice thing about Moonstruck, I'd be like, oh, I want to read your book now, and all this back and forth stuff.
There was something, I was wondering if that had informed your storytelling at all, because one of the cool things about Moonstruck, yes, there's certainly a warmth and a sparkle to the art, but there's also your use of paneling in this first arc. Almost like every page can stand on its own. I was wondering if that was kind of a deliberate choice, and if there's any plans to kind of change that up moving into arc 2.
I like messing with paneling a lot, and that might just be because I was trained as an illustrator or whatever, and I like to have each page stand alone. But I just I like having the liberty to mess the structure a little bit, and having it fit whatever is going to be in that panel, instead of having the art. It is like having the panel fit the art instead of the art fit the panel kind of thing.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense, but I try.
It makes it a bit more organic.
Yeah, like that.
There's a
That's a good word.
Yeah. I remember that one, Jake. I have to use that one more often.
I'll note it. Yes.
There is something you were mentioning, getting free books at ALA and meeting people at ALA. I feel like there is a book that was featured at ALA that you might appreciate would be Scales and Scoundrels by Sebastian Gerner and Galad.
Yes, I actually did some talks with him while I was there.
They come from a big video game background too, and I remember you're really keen on the old video games and that sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like there's that sense of both the lushness of color and environment and that sense of kineticism, even for surprisingly something as Moonstruck, where it's just these characters searching for normalcy and love in their 20s. But having said that, there's a sense of kineticism to that story.
Yeah, I think, like, again, some of that was kind of just how I was introduced to comics growing up. So a lot of, like, the first artistic things that I started looking at were things like art books for video games or art books for whatever have you. Mm-hmm. But I kind of drew a lot of inspiration from those, and backgrounds have been kind of a trouble thing for me ever since going into college. So I would study those a little bit more because they're more focused on background and environment, stuff like that. But yeah, I actually did pick up a issue 1 of Scales and Scoundrels, and I'm eager to dig into that, but at the same time, I got to find the time.
Sure. Speaking of backgrounds, your book, Moonstruck, has probably more jokes per capita than any other joke or any other book on the stands. Like, mostly in the background. Is that something that you and Grace kind of work out, or is that how what's the divide there?
I feel like that's kind of in my court at that point. So there will be a couple times where there's a crowd scene. Sometimes Grace and Lauren will give me like a list of just different monsters to put in there, or some things that can be going on in the background. But for the most part, it's kind of up to my discretion. Mm-hmm. But I've been finding that as kind of like my place to put in, little cameos or jokes and stuff like that, and just kind of have fun while I'm drawing whatever for the rest of the day. There was actually a story me and Grace were telling at ALA where there is a scene in issue 5 where Lindy and Mark high five or something. Mm-hmm. And Grace's notes in the script just said, the snakes are doing something funny. Like, Lindy's hair's snakes are doing something funny, but I don't know what it is, so you do it. And I was just like, okay, so the snakes are high-fiving too. There we go. And she got a real big kick out of that. And it's like, I didn't even think that snakes could high-five, but there you go, you did it.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
That's true.
There is, speaking of cameos, a certain Australian monster that makes a cameo in, I want to say, issue 2 during the parade. That is one of the funniest. It's a complete blink and you miss it. If you're not paying attention on that panel, you won't see it. But that was something that that panel in general, I kept coming back to, both in single issue and trade, because it was just like, it was just so brilliant, and it's the happiest I've ever seen that character.
No, thank you. No, I like doing that kind of stuff, and whenever I read comics, I always spend more time looking at the art than I do. I'll read through the story and then I'll go back and look at all the art, and I like to throw stuff in there. Like, I like to look at things like blink if you miss it kind of things, like you said.
Mm-hmm. With a lot of this first arc takes place at night. Is arc 2 going to be kind of, I guess, mainly because you're dealing with magic and ghosts, and you really do kind of like put that ghost through the slapstick ringer. Like, oh yeah, there are multiple moments with that where I'm just like, oh, he's dead again, like taking rocks to the back of the head.
Yeah.
But with what can we expect art wise and color wise and just tonally with arc 2?
Well, Arc 2 is taking place throughout the winter in Blytheton. So we've got probably a little more of a muted palette, lots of snowy scenes, but also lots of indoor stuff. You're going to be seeing a lot of the college and the frat life there, obviously. So just a lot of stuff going on. Oh, hold on. My dog is angry.
And here I thought you were a cat person.
Oh, I am, but I also have a dog. So.
Come on, man. It's like Star Trek and Star Wars. You can be both.
So, fair enough. There was
Leave it to a nerd podcast to make that analogy.
well, it's a yes. relevant. The I was wondering, you since the start of the since launching the series with Grace, you've moved out of Ohio. How has that changed your all's working dynamic?
We still keep in touch, definitely. We're always sending our works back and forth, like, between script and pages and all that. And we still work as close together, if not closer, like as we are. We just can't physically meet up, which is a little bit of a bummer. But, sometimes it's nice to get out of a big city and just like, a lot of my family's in this area, so I've just been hanging out, doing family stuff a lot. I do miss Columbus, but maybe in the future I'll be moving back. Depends on what rent is like.
That's the great. Like, we live in the DC area, and that just kind of goes up like clockwork around here. I can't speak for Columbus rent, but yeah, it just never gets cheaper.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So, if normalcy and Julie and Selena's relationship is the core of Arc 1, and Julie coming to terms with her lycanthropy and being comfortable with it and realizing that's who she is, what can we expect in Arc 2 thematically?
This is one of these times where I wish Grace was here with me.
We got her on a tangent on
so much better than I
Scooby-Doo.
could.
Yeah. We got her talking a lot about Scooby Doo. Now that I think about it, almost like distractingly a lot about Scooby Doo. Do you have what is okay? Just for the sake of tangents, who is your favorite member of the Scooby Doo gang?
Ooh. Now, I've always liked Shaggy because I love the comic relief.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have a little place in my heart for Scrappy.
Wow.
Yeah, is that bad? I feel like that's not something people usually go for. I like that little pup.
For whatever reason, a while ago, everyone decided that Scrappy sucks, but I never bought into that. So
I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why.
I'm there with you. I feel like it was mostly the live-action movie that, like, everyone was like, yeah, fuck Scrappy, because he was, like, the bad guy in the live-action movie. But
it's the movies.
Also, I love
different
the live-action
Scrappy,
movies.
different universe.
I was under the in the denouement, which we've partially recorded. I've made the argument that Vincent Price was the better sidekick because in the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, they team up with Vincent Price as Vincent Price. And I'm like, well, I would rather run around with Vincent Price than Scrappy-Doo.
Well, yeah. Well, given that choice, yeah.
And then nobody remembers Scooby-Dum.
I do.
Okay.
Oh.
He was
like gray.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And he was
and had a fedora?
It was a straw. He was like the hillbilly,
right.
Do or Dumb or Scooby. Yeah. So, yeah, there's a whole thing, but
no, like I'm remembering now. There's like there's something going around on Twitter or something. It was like a Scooby family tree. It was like all the different relatives of Scooby Doo going around, and all the weird like cousin dogs and grandma dogs. It's like I don't remember any of this.
Just the one-off appearances of all the extended Scooby family. We know more about. I guess the show is named after Scooby, but we know more about Scooby than we do say like the nuances of Fred and Daphne's relationship.
Yeah,
but in terms of art influence, then I think you mentioned Bosma as an influence on the look of the book as a whole, and that kind of warmth of art and the kind of sparkle quality that Moonstruck has. I do always ask this of people that come from a video game background or are greatly influenced by video games. What if you had to point to any video game influence visually? What would you say some of them are?
I don't know about like games that have informed my style, but I guess like visually striking games that kind of like led me to do more art. I played a lot of Okami when I was a kid. Oh God. Which was a beautiful game to me, like just seeing a different style within a video game, something painted instead of, something 3D modeled or what have you, which was really cool to me. And I tried to take up ink painting after that. It didn't turn out very well, but I just really I really enjoy just like visually different games like that. And I think that kind of helped me with my own art, just trying to figure out something visually different.
Do you tend to find yourself drawn to cel-shaded games more than, say, games that strive for realism?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, I go for more of the stylized look than the hyper-real look.
So, like, Beautiful Joe and...
I've not played those, but I want to.
Well, I'm trying to think of, like, something a little more mainstreamy, like Super Mario Sunshine. I thought always had this really vibrant color palette and that sort of thing.
Definitely.
So how's it been working with the rest of the team? You've got Kate doing the Pleasant Mountain Valley books. You've got it's Caitlin Quirk on colors.
Yes.
How has that been and kind of changed over the course of the I guess nearly year since the book started? Yeah,
it's been a while. As of now, for going into the second arc, we have Kat Fajardo that's taking over the Pleasant Mountain Sisters interspersals. So we're planning on changing that up every arc, changing up the guest artist. But I haven't gotten a chance to talk to her yet, but it's been really cool, and I really admire her work. Caitlin's been amazing, as always, and Clayton as well, Clayton Cowles on letters. I always just want to shout out to the entire team because we wouldn't have this book without everybody.
Yeah. And I mean it really is that there's a warmth even in the nighttime sequences to this book that though you guys bring it's not all fun and games. There's some genuine heart, and especially as Julie and Selena's relationship gets tested over the course of this arc. And I think that really is a testament to the artwork. And you guys really do. You have earned your place on, because I think you guys made Entertainment Weekly's best comics of 2017. And
oh man, I know that's been another thing that I can tell older members of my family, and they're like, "Oh, I know what that name is." "Oh, Entertainment Weekly. I guess you actually do work." I feel like that's most of my life is being "Please, family, yes, what I do is legit."
Well, that kind of mirrors the characters. They're just going though. Actually, now that I think about it, we don't really see family. It's just it's Julie and it's Chet and Selena and everyone just kind of doing their thing. Are we going to start to see more of their backstories and families as we move forward, or is it really just kind of sticking to the core cast?
We will, I believe, see some of Julie's family in the future. I can't tell you exactly when or exactly who, but we're planning on it. We've thought about it a lot.
Because I feel like so much of your 20s, and now because again, I remember you were literally fresh out of college when the first time you came on the show.
Oh yeah,
you had been out for a month, and
yeah.
I remember saying the 20s are where you kind of figure yourself out beyond college, not just beyond school, but beyond family. And that I think if there's anything about the late 20s, early 30s, it's figuring out how family figures back into that.
Definitely. So,
I guess to kind of tease what you may be expecting in the next 5 years.
Right. Yeah, we're working on it though. I can't really say too much. Again, I would love to defer to Grace.
How much do you have plotted out? I mean, you don't obviously have to go into specifics, but how much would you say you both have kind of sat down and plotted out so far?
Grace has most of the second arc, I believe, already plotted out. It's just a matter of getting it all drawn, colored, and lettered.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, it sounds that easy, but...
Yeah. Well, Shae, I don't know if you remember, but something we ask everybody that comes on the show. What are you currently geeking out over?
Okay. So I'm going to go back to video games because that's kind of just what I do in my free time. and my girlfriend introduced me to Stardew Valley, which has been all that I've been doing as I'm trying to go to sleep, because I played a ton of Harvest Moon as a kid, and now I'm playing a ton of this because it's very, very similar.
It's basically Harvest Moon.
It's basically Harvest Moon, but I love it, and it's bringing me back to, like middle school days. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it's just really calming, and it's very nice. I don't know if I'm geeking out over it, but I enjoy it a lot.
Sebastian, the first time we had Sebastian Gerner on the show, he was geeking out over Stardew Valley. And then the last time, because he's been on twice, and the second time, by the time, and it was only like several months, he was promoting the Scales trade, which was like, so it was like 5 months later. And he was, I don't mean to upset the apple cart here, but he had to kick Stardew Valley because he realized it was just a game that promoted small scale capitalism.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, you think about it that way.
Well, that's Seb, but yeah, you just build up your like farm from nothing, and it becomes like this like autonomous business. And he was like, I can't, like, once he made that realization, he had to just drop it forever.
I just like to pet cows. It was just petting cows.
Oh, you moved back to Kentucky, I guess.
Yes, it's true.
So what can we what can we expect moving forward with Moonstruck? And do you have anything else before we return you to the wilds of Kentucky that you wanna plug?
Well, our trade comes out March 26th, I want to say.
21st in comic shops and Comixology, and the following Tuesday, the 27th in bookstores.
Okay, yeah, that sounds right. Sorry about my mix-up on the dates.
Quite all right.
But that is coming out, and we're super excited about it. Issue 6 should be coming out that following month on some new comic book day. Not entirely sure about the date on that either, but we are just pushing forward on more Moonstruck.
How's it been kind of rendering frat boys?
It's been very fun. I do so much love to draw all that nasty frat fashion.
A lot of baseball tees, a lot of V-necks.
A lot of polos, a lot of khakis.
Nice. Looking forward to the slightly askew baseball caps.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. Well, again, that first volume of Moonstruck out in comic book stores everywhere on March 21st, and book stores on March. I literally just said the number. March 27th. Yes, that's the one. Shae, thanks again for coming on the show.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Always a good time talking to Grace and Shae.
Yep.
I'm glad we talked about Scooby Doo at length.
Yeah. It's always fun talking about Scooby Doo.
Of course. Except for the 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo with Vincent Price.
Apparently, I'm the only one that enjoyed that show.
I mean,
I didn't really bring it up during the interview, but I was like, I like that show.
But they don't get all 13, and they don't. So is Vincent Price like?
As a child, I did not care that they didn't get all 13. I didn't even know there was fewer than 13 episodes.
Also, like, they never really. So is Vincent Van Price also Vincent Van Price from our world that just also happens to catch ghosts?
It's a cartoon for 5-year-olds.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to invoke the lyrics of the Mystery Science Theater 3000 TV show. And I need you to repeat to yourself that it's just a show and that I should really just relax.
Yes. Well, here's the thing. Honest to God, I would rather have Vincent Price as the sidekick than Scrappy Doo. The tingler is loose in the theater.
Even a disembodied, just crystal ball that has Vincent Price's head in it.
Well, only when he's like in the Scooby Doo headquarters. He's out there with him.
Was he?
Mm-hmm. He's got like a red cape.
Really? It's been a long time.
So
I just thought he was a Zordon-esque figure.
At times. But yeah, you guys get into anything?
I saw Death Wish, the new Death Wish.
Whoa.
The movie starts off when it's just like it's like Death Wish, and then like it goes to a flat line. It's like Death Wish, beep beep beep, and like one guy was like, "Oh God!" like in the theater.
Well, if that's not a metaphor, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I mean, we all loved, depending on Bruce Willis. Like he's in a lot of our favorite movies or movies we all enjoy. not my favorite person, or not my favorite. He hasn't been a big draw of late.
Mm-hmm.
And Eli Roth seems like a wonderful guy in interviews, but I've not been not a huge fan of his movies. So I went in kind of like not super stoked, but I was like, for some reason I was like, I got to see this movie. I've read the book, the original Death Wish book. I've seen, the original Charles Bronson movie, and it was discount day. So I was like, fuck it. Surprisingly, the movie's made I think it made like 13 million its opening weekend or whatever, its opening night or whatever, which is pretty good for a movie that I don't think anybody had any interest in seeing besides me. And it was like surprisingly like a nearly sold out theater, which made for, forget the movie. I mean, you guys know the plot of the movie. It's fine. There's, and Bruce Willis,
Basically the Punisher.
yeah. But Bruce Willis, he puts on some charm in this. Like he puts in a performance I haven't seen him do in a while. But there's still some of that kind of like static, like dead-eyed Bruce Willis,
Static.
Oh shit. And they play Back in Black a lot, but
Just that one song.
yeah,
Multiple
but
times.
I
it's
think
like
I
the
think
first
twice.
Iron Man?
Yeah, I think twice they play it. They play it twice. But look, I mean, for Eli Roth movie, they don't go for like the gore fest. There is some violent stuff in it. It is about a guy who, loses his wife, his daughter goes into a coma, and he becomes a vigilante. I was surprised by the movie. This would be a Sam Stone like Jake thing where I hover over it on like Vudu for like sale day. I'm like maybe because there's some moments that are like interesting in it. And like I said, Bruce Willis, they don't go for like he's like a badass the whole time. Like the beginning of the movie, they really set up that like he doesn't like confrontation. He's a doctor. Oh, the beginning does have a really interesting thing where I was like, you know what? Maybe there's some interesting stuff in this movie. A cop is shot, and the partner is driving him to the hospital. They get to the hospital. Bruce Willis goes. They try everything they can. He dies. And so he's like, and the cop's like, I should have got there faster. And Bruce Willis is like, look, once you lose a certain amount of blood in your body, it's like toxic shock. There's like a blood toxic shock thing where like it doesn't matter if you get pumped blood right back in, it's done.
Yeah, your body goes into shock from the sudden amount of blood
Yeah,
loss.
exactly. And he's like, there's just nothing you can do. Like we tried everything. There's just nothing we can do. But then he hears over the intercom that the shooter is now being taken to the hospital. And Dr. Kersey's like, well, I got to go operate on him. And the cop's like, oh, you're going to try to save that scumbag now? And it's like this very like, yeah, that's my job, Yeah. And then he's at a soccer thing.
Hippocratic oath.
Yeah. But then there's a thing with the, like he goes to a soccer game with his daughter and like a guy's really getting into it and like really gets in Bruce Willis's face. And Bruce Willis, doesn't, he's not like, fuck you. He's like, hey man, cool. Let's, chill out, blah, blah, blah. And they show that he doesn't know how to use a gun, like the first time he fires a gun, it like ricochets and the first time he goes out and like they call him the Grim Reaper with the hoodie up and stuff. The gun bites him, which is the thing that happens if you don't know how to hold a gun properly. When the action slides back, it can really jack up the inside of your like finger and thumb, which I don't remember ever seeing in a movie. And that happens, bites him, leaves this nasty cut. So then they're like, oh, well, we can look for this on this left-handed shooter. And he slowly gets better and better and better and better and better. And they do like montages of him like training using YouTube videos on how to like get rid of he like steals security footage that has him shooting somebody on it, and then like how to clean the gun and how to do all the other things. And there's some interesting moments, but the thing that made the movie super entertaining for me was the audience went fucking nuts for it. Like even if like I don't think the audience necessarily loved the movie, but but they just had fun watching it. So like when Bruce Willis was like doing the death wishing, and going off being a vigilante, this woman yelled like, hit him again, like, and they were like clapping and cheering.
So Bread and Circuses, the arena.
Yeah, they were like cheering and like clapping along when Bruce Willis was killing these like bad guys, because the guys that break in and like kill his wife and put his daughter in a coma are like, they're bad dudes, and they also do the thing which is
one of them Jeff Goldblum again.
No, Jesus. One thing that and this is something that one of my buddies, his dad was always telling us to do: never put in your GPS in your car under home, because what they do, like, and this seriously, one of my buddies' dads, he would have their home address under some random name, because what happens is a guy's valet guy he realizes they're rich because he hears them over talking about being a doctor or whatever,
Yeah.
and like getting a new nice watch and this and that. They have a nice place. And they go to this expensive restaurant. So he goes to pick up their car, opens up the GPS, types in home, takes a picture of the address, and then that's when he knows how to go there. So I was like, oh shit, my buddy's dad has been saying that for years. But yeah, I think overall it was entertaining, $6 to see Bruce Willis, and they don't really necessarily make movies like that anymore, like the revenge movies, for good or bad, whatever. But I was surprised. I thought it was going to be like just horrendous and painful, but
Hostile.
yeah. Oh
Or
yeah,
two.
Yeah. I'm not into that. I'm not into that.
Cost harder.
I'm not into any of that kind of stuff with Eli Roth stuff. Like I said, he does what he does, and he's good in *Inglourious Bastards*.
Oh yeah.
But it was I was surprised when I was there. I was like, oh, I enjoyed that as just a good old fashioned like Bruce Willis revenge flick.
A romp.
Yeah, well, not necessarily a romp, but yeah, you do. I mean, like I said, there are some gruesome like Eli Roth moments. They also showed the trailer for, which I had not seen. I knew it was coming out, but had not seen anything from it. The new Strangers movie, which comes out on Friday, which I was like, fuck yeah, because I loved the first Strangers movie. That's one of my favorite like psychological like horror home invasion movies in recent memory. I think the movie's almost 10 years old now, which is crazy.
Glenn Howerton gets annihilated
That's
with a
right.
shotgun.
That's right. Yeah, by the dude from Underworld.
Scott Speedman.
Scott Speedman, yes. But the trailer actually was like,
Where's our Scott Speedman podcast?
where is our Scott? Welcome to Scott Speedman.
Welcome to the Speedman.
Yeah.
We've got fun and games.
Yeah.
Not really, because it's the Scott Speedman podcast.
Spinning with Scott Speedman. Remember in the second movie when they're like, don't eat human food because it'll fuck you up, and then he eats human food and it fucks him up.
Yeah.
That makes me hungry though, because he's like eating like pork and mashed potatoes. I'm like, fuck yeah. But no, the trailer has like the song that I think we're alone now, but it keeps doing the I think we're alone now. I think we're alone now. I
keeps
think we're
skipping.
alone, and like it's just like there's this great moment where I think they call him Bagman in the original because they don't have names. And the girl's like in the car.
Strangers.
Yeah, the girl's like in the car. She's like, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck. And then like you see like a car pull up next to him, and it's just the Bagman in the car, like you're fucked.
Yeah.
I'm totally gonna see it, man. I love the first Strangers movie. I fucking love that. I think that was one of the more clever home invasion, just horror movies in recent memory. And I'm psyched because I don't know. It made it look like there's more of like a. It looks way more nuts than the first one. There's like flaming vehicles and explosions and all this kind of crazy shit. And the Strangers are back, baby. But they've been talking about that forever. I feel like a Stranger sequel. And so hopefully the reason is it's taking a while because they really want to make a solid one. That looks fun. So we'll see.
In the original, did they do the "Is Tamara home" thing?
Yeah, they do that. Yeah,
Because
I
that's
think
inspired by a true story.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's like probably the only like true element of it.
Here's the truth to that from what I've read about is that it's inspired by and based on is two very different things. The inspired by is like, I guess the director when he was a kid, someone came up to their house, knocked on the door, asked if Tamara was home or whatever. They were like, you got the wrong house. And the next morning a house was burglarized. And he was like, oh, what if it was this? And it became this whole other thing. So yeah, we'll see. I'm excited because like I said, I enjoyed that first one.
We went to Seattle. We can talk about it real brief. Image flew Jake and I out to Seattle. We got to see a lot of old faces that have been on the show.
Yeah.
Donnie Cates somehow convinced me that the Deadpool is secretly awesome.
Yeah, I did not have that conversation.
I was because this interview hasn't gone live yet, but I was talking to his collaborator on Baby Teeth, Gary Brown, and remember he was like, "Yeah, that's my favorite," and I was like, "Where?" I was giving Donnie shit on Gary's behalf. I was like, "Dude, there's like these things in the Deadpool," and he's like, "Literally everything you mentioned to me is awesome," and I was like,
"On paper, sure."
But you're going to see a lot of those familiar faces that we talked to in Seattle again.
Fried chicken.
I was kind of bummed he wasn't in Seattle, but anyway. Did you have fun in Seattle, Jake?
No. Yeah, of course I did. I love Seattle. I love that city. It's my favorite city in the world, and I love that show.
Yeah. You have a Chris Burnham story that should we?
I mean,
It's not a bad story.
No, it's funny. He's doing his
at a party
civic duty. There was a party they were doing, and it was someone's birthday, and
We still don't know whose.
the DJ was like, "Hey guys, let's lower our voices so we can sing Happy Birthday." And it was in the middle of like a party, so everyone was like, rah, 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 and like
The drinks were free, so everybody was pretty well.
Everyone was like talking, and then they tried it again, and there was like some people got quiet, and then they still, and then Chris Burnham is there, and he just went, "Shut up!" and like just shut everybody up. They sang Happy Birthday, and we were back to having a party. And then for some reason, it just cracked me up so hard.
Yeah.
He's like one of my favorite artists on the planet, and just seeing him like calmly just talking with people and just yells, "Shut up!" and then goes right back to his conversation to get to help out this poor DJ to get everyone to be quiet was quite hilarious to me.
Kyle Starks and I drank all their cucumber water.
Ugh. I never understood the appeal of what is it about cucumber water?
It's better than just straight up water.
It has the essence of
Cucumber.
It has the essence of a cuke.
Give me your energy, cucumber.
Yeah. It's like having a cucumber facial, but for your insides.
Yes, an insidal.
I mean, I like cucumber. I like cucumbers just fine, but I don't know.
A throatle.
That's worse. God. But no, I might have some more writing gigs. I can't talk about it just yet, but I might be writing for more than just Image Plus in the next couple. Oh, I know. Oh, golly, Walt. All the times I've been to Seattle, never actually been in the Space Needle.
Same. It was down for reconstruction.
Well, I wouldn't have gone either way.
Well, I'm saying if you wanted to, it was down.
We did get pie.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Gotta get pie, man. I've the two times I've been there, I'm like, to get pie, I was like, man, they got so many options. I just get the peanut butter pie both times.
I always get strawberry rhubarb.
Rhubarb! Yep.
Chris, you ever been to Seattle?
Rhubarb!
No. the
I got patted down at SeaTac because my dick was too big.
I saw that. I saw that post on what was it, Facebook?
Yeah.
Sorry, we thought you were packing.
Yeah, they were like, we thought you were stuffing your pants. I was like, no, man. That's...
Thanks, but no.
Yeah. Which one of you guys gets to touch my penis? You? All right, let's do it.
Hope
They
you
did.
warmed up your hands.
Yeah. They wore gloves.
Hope you warmed up your gloves.
Yeah. As I walked away, I just and put my belt back on. I was just like, don't forget to write.
Didn't even buy you dinner.
No. You don't have to in Seattle.
Oh.
They're very forward.
Let me see your dick.
Yeah. In their defense, they didn't actually... Well, anyway, I won't... Let's not talk about my penis. Please. Yeah.
I started putting together models again while you guys
saw
were
that.
away. Yeah. For anyone that's been following me on the Twitter, you've seen some regular updates about me putting together some Gundam models. I'm about 3/4 of the way through a perfect grade Wing Zero Gundam from Endless Waltz of the movie, the Gundam Wing movie.
Speaking of which, you've started watching G Gundam.
I have. While I'm building these, I like to watch things in the background. Sometimes it'll
Remember
be like,
why you started.
yeah. Sometimes it'll be like, my friend's Twitch streaming. I found the entire series of Gundam Wing, and I watched that all while I was doing the Master Grade Death Scythe Hell. And now that I'm doing Wing Gundam, I've decided to do. I've decided to watch G Gundam, which that makes sense since Wing Gundam was not in G Gundam.
Well, yeah,
But-
it's its own. That's it.
Yeah.
You only get like one season.
Yeah, and I like that. There's been 20 seasons of
Gundam
various
Wing?
Gundam
Yeah.
shows, which boggled my mind.
Mobile suit. Yeah.
And Gundam Wing was from 95, and I was like, whoa.
That's when it came to the States. It's been like since like the 80s.
Well, yeah, no, I'm saying just specifically Gundam Wing.
Oh, right.
Yeah, no, original Gundam was like I think it was 79.
Oh,
actually.
yeah, damn.
While I was researching, I saw all the things.
Makes sense with the fashion.
Yeah, but yeah, so G Gundam's actually the one that was right before Gundam Wing. So luckily I was able to find dubbed in English because I'm not paying attention, so I can't read subtitles while I'm doing this work. But I gotta say, for the most part, I'm finding G Gundam a lot more entertaining than Gundam Wing.
Yeah.
Gundam Wing's cool because it has such like a deep, rich storyline, but like for me, it was so hard to follow because there's so many characters that you have to keep track of, and so many storylines, and it really seems like it kind of jumps pretty far in between each episode, and I'm like, I can't. It almost was until the end of the story that I really understood what was going on through the whole show. Whereas the
Master Asia?
Yeah. Yeah, Master Asia, he's easy to follow. By the way, throughout the story, for those of you that haven't seen G Gundam, the first several episodes, they're just like one-off, fights, like you're in, just like a 1v1 fighting game. And so like Master Asia comes on and I'm like, oh cool, the episode with Master Asia. I texted Sam and I was like, hey, I got to the Master Asia episode. He doesn't have that line in the first episode he's in because he's in like 10 episodes. He becomes a reoccurring villain, kind of. Spoilers. Because he's not a villain to start off with.
He's the big bad.
Yeah.
I'll just go. This show's been out for 20 years.
Yeah.
He's the big bad.
Yeah. I mean, I'm only like 15 episodes into an almost 50 episode show. But yeah, I mean, yeah, he's clearly, at this point, he is established as the big bad.
All he wants is to become Super Asia.
And he still hasn't told me that yet.
Can we use that as our intro again?
Sure.
Cool.
I'll see if do you remember which episode it was on? Because I know I have it saved in...
This past week's.
Actually, you know what? Fuck it. I have the episode downloaded on my computer. I can probably just rip the audio so it's even cleaner. So it's not a cell phone being held up to a microphone.
That's the production quality we bring here at Geek Out in the Geek Out studio.
Yeah. Geek Out.
Like a fine wine.
Yeah. That's just how you'll know every time that we're talking about Gundams in the episode. We'll tack that on at the beginning.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Jake, you never actually played Dynasty Warriors Gundam, did you?
No.
I mean, neither did I.
Yeah. Well, the difference is I let him borrow it.
Oh, so it's like how I never played Red Dead Redemption.
Yes.
Because you let me borrow that.
The difference is that's actually a good game.
Woo!
Yeah. But I mean,
that's what I hear.
Yeah, if you just want to be robots beating up other robots.
Actually, which system was that on?
360.
Okay,
I can let you borrow it.
I did play. I do have a 360, and it works now. I took it into the shop because I was thinking about
my
selling
360.
it.
I finally hooked up my 360. It's there, and then I just ended up playing Doom.
Nice. No,
I still have a PS4 in the box.
nice. I still haven't taken it out of the box.
Nope.
Too many PS3 games to play still.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've got PS3 games, 360 games.
Yeah, you can play PS3 games on your PS4.
Probably. And it's not like I don't have PS4, any PS4. I have 3. I picked up Fallout 4.
You're only hurting yourself, man. I don't know what else to tell you.
I hurt myself all the time.
No, I don't know what to tell you.
I actually just got my 360 fixed, as I mentioned a minute ago.
Spay to neuter your pets.
Yeah. But like the disc tray wasn't opening up, so I took it into East Starland, a mom and pop equivalent GameStop around here. And it was $20 to fix the disc tray, and I was like, cool, now I can sell it, and I feel not bad about selling a broken system. And I looked it up, and like the most that I can get for it is $20, and I was like, fuck. And then they're gonna turn around and sell it for $100?
Probably.
Yeah, no thank you.
Yeah. Fuckers. There's always McKay's.
Yeah, even yeah, I can get store credit for a used bookstore.
Yeah. Well, they have other things.
I mean, they get
that's where I got
game systems.
Yeah. That's where I got my copy of Fallout 4, which I still haven't played.
You know what? I'll walk in and they'll be like, "Oh, thank you for not bringing comic books like those two dum-dums."
Yeah. Really, just one dum-dum. Jake, you don't turn in comic books.
I haven't. I have a stack, but I haven't turned any. yet.
There's definitely books I need to that I need to pop back.
I did have a Gundam game, but I think it was for the original PlayStation.
Oh wow! Back when
But
it
it
was still on the air.
Yeah, but it actually was probably relatively soon after Gundam Wing stopped airing on Toonami. So like late 90s ish. I want to say we were in middle school. But yeah, I think it was for the PS1, PSX, if you will. But yeah, it was a fighting game, and I think it was the first. I forget what it was called, but I think it was the first Gundam video game that incorporated Gundams from multiple series, and that was how I found out that there were multiple series of Gundam.
Yeah, it's like there's Hero, and there's Amuro Ray, and there's Domon Kashu, and you're just like, wait a minute, huh? Millardo,
Shiny Gundam.
The Burning Finger attack.
On my dub, it's Shining Finger.
Maybe it is. I don't know. It's
Actually, I think even in the intro, which is still the Japanese song, I think they say Shining Finger. Yeah. My hand burns with anger. Blah blah blah. Tells me to defeat you. Shining Finger. And then he like crushes your head.
Yeah, I love that show. I haven't seen it in years.
You want to borrow it? It's a whole bunch of MKV files.
I still need to watch my old editor on who we might have on a special episode coming up if this Less Than Jake thing doesn't go through. It's like, well, I have a special episode waiting in the wings anyway. He let me borrow all of Big O, and I need to watch all of Big O.
I kind of feel like watching that.
I have it all. I need to give it back. The problem is I won't see him. I don't know when the next time I'm going to see David is. It bums me out because he wasn't in Seattle. And he had a panel in Seattle that he had to Skype into because they advertised without letting him know. They're like, oh, we just always assume you have a panel here. And he's like, yeah, I don't work for Image anymore. And so they Skyped him in. That's awkward as hell. But no, I miss the dude. I need to get him his show back. But that's a tease. You'll be seeing him on the show or hearing him on the show more accurately. Talking about Gundam, actually, which is pretty cool. Talking about G Gundam. So thanks again to Grace and Shae for coming back on the show. Moonstruck is out on Wednesday, March 21st. This has been another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake. Thank you very much.
Good night, Eric Bana.
Much hardcore, Henry.
This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual Catching Up show every Wednesday. And you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.